So, with today being the 11-year anniversary of my sister's passing, it's, a day where I guess it makes sense to reflect on life after death. And that's in two senses. So, the one, of course, is the eternal life, whether heaven or hell. And then the other one is life here on earth if you are not the one that has died, but someone that you love has died. And, even the term died is it's kind of interesting that we use that term, because in the way we traditionally think about death, it seems to imply that that life has stopped. But in reality, that person's spirit is still very much alive, and you could even argue more alive than ever if they're in heaven. And so but yeah, thinking about life here after death, I don't know to what extent that the sort of, it does feel like the passing of a loved one does leave a scar on a person. And I don't know to what extent that scar, gets fully healed, and to what extent that it's just a part of you. Like if you're a tree and a limb gets ripped off, and maybe the wound kind of closes back up or whatever, but there's still a scar there. So how much, to what extent is there a scar, and to what extent, can you, through healing, spiritual, emotional healing, trauma healing, etc., can you fully get rid of the scar? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I know for my parents, I think there were certain times of the year that they just kind of dreaded. That they just kind of knew were going to be hard times, basically, in those early years after my sister's passing. And so I don't know to what extent, I don't know for sure how hard those times still are for them. On the one hand, I think it's amazing how resilient humans can be, and how that even after, experiencing devastating loss, that humans are able to recover and to go on, and to live lives that are mostly normal again, I think. But I think also that in the moment, in the immediate years following the death of a loved one, I think it can probably feel like it's taking forever. Like the loss and the grief just go on and on and on, and they just drag out now, and they just are so slow to be gone. I think it's very possible that's the case. So, I'm not some kind of grief expert. I do think that it's good to allow the process to play out, to allow God to be a part of it, and I think it's completely fine to look back at the past with sorrow, especially initially, and to seek to find healing, to where there's always some sorrow when you look back, or or not, that you try to find a path forward, I think is good. I don't know that it's trying to intentionally be stuck in grief to honor the passing of your loved one. I don't think is necessary. But at the same time, if it happens, neither should you, I think, run away from it or pretend it's not happening, right? So I think much healthier to try to allow it to kind of come out and to process it. So yeah, I think it's amazing, how resilient humans can be, and it's it's kind of crazy that grief and loss can be so, I say it's crazy. I mean, it's for all of us, our stay here on this earth is temporary. The long term is actually after what we call death here, right? After we transition to the next life. And so, in order to be, so in some ways, it's just an inevitable component of loving people, is that if or when you're separated, if you're not the one to die, and then if you're the other people, if you're one of the people around the person dying, that you will experience grief and loss. And so I think it's probably good to accept that fact and still, it's one of those things, where, what is that classic saying, that it's better to love and to have loved and lost than to not have loved at all. And I think it's true. I think that most of our lives, at least for those of us who are fortunate to live in a modern country like ours, I think most of our lives, we're not constantly surrounded by death and destruction all the time. So we really get to live a lot of our lives, many people, not everybody maybe, but many people get to live a lot of their lives where death doesn't have to be like this prominent theme and like everybody around them is constantly dying. So we're very fortunate, I guess, in that regard. And so much of life is not traumatic, is not even dramatic, I suppose. It's pretty normal. And I suppose that the normal life is something to actually be quite grateful for, because those normal days are an opportunity to spend time with people we love, to cultivate relationships, and to enjoy those people here in this life.